Well, let's talk about Connecticut now, because Connecticut has been the most impressive team in the tournament. They've won every game
Yeah.
by at least 15 points. We talked about this last weekend when we did the first two rounds. We said Connecticut was the most impressive team at that point, and we're going to continue to say it. This is, to me, look, I've been on Connecticut all year. I've been talking about them since before Thanksgiving, that I think they're the best team in college basketball. They went through that lull where it was really tough, but this is the deepest, most talented team, in my opinion. They have a first round pick in Jordan Hawkins. They have a future first round pick in Donovan Clingan. They have another guy that's a terrific big man in Adama Sanogo. They have another draft prospect in some respect in Andre Jackson. They have all sorts of length and shooting around them with Naheem Aline, Tristan Newton, Alex Caravan, another potential future draft prospect for us to look at. Joey
Joey
Calcaterra,
Calcaterra, baby.
like, to the level to which Connecticut, and this is what I said, I remember a couple of years ago, or not a couple of years ago, I remember back in April when all of these roster machinations were happening for Connecticut. They lost guys like Corey Floyd, Diggins. Who else did they lose? They might have lost Gaffney, if I remember correctly, as well, at Florida Atlantic
Yeah.
now. In the Connecticut, they lost four guys. And the Connecticut fan base was like, the sky is falling. Danny Hurley is not the guy for this job. And then they go out and get Tristan Newton. And I'm just like, guys, this is like a home run. You guys need to chill out a little
Yeah.
bit. And they still were upset that they'd lost those guys. And I was like, look, you need to start thinking about this from an NBA centric perspective, where if the Connecticut staff, and I'm not saying that they ran these kids off, I don't know, but like if the Connecticut staff didn't think that those kids were good enough to play, Cook as well was another one. If the Connecticut staff did not think that those kids were good enough to play that season, then the odds are that those open roster spots in today's transfer portal centric environment, those open roster spots, scholarship spots, are going to be more valuable to you in the portal. So what did they do? They used the Tristan Newton one, and then they had three other scholarships. They got and they get Joey Calcaterra to be a terrific older shooter who can space the floor. They go out and they get Naheem Aline, a physical point of attack defender who can space the floor. The fact that they just added these dudes, also, I believe they added Hassan Diarra was the third one, as like a killer point of attack defender who can come in and annoy the shit out of guards for 5 minutes. That's the modern college basketball ecosystem. Getting a star and having like open roster spots available to fill it out with role players is more valuable than just having guys on the end of your bench that might not be good enough at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yep. And beyond that, Sam, I think the transfer portal side of things is incredibly important, particularly with this Connecticut team. But lost in the fray of how well they game plan, of how deep their offensive playbook is, and just a beautiful mechanism to watch. They have had some of the most impressive skill development from last year to this year with their main guys that I can remember in college basketball. Andre Jackson's evolution to being more of a point guard and a handler, and the improvements that he has made as a passer and a playmaker, absolutely huge. There was that one play right before halftime of the Connecticut game in the Elite Eight where he saw that there was I think they were blitzing a ball screen trying to throw it to Sanogo down low. The pass was inaccurate, and Jackson kind of flies up from the corner, tips it out to a shooter, and they end up getting a three right before the half goes. Like, his feel and his attention to detail has always been incredibly high. But to translate that to on-ball reps, to knowing how to create in the pick and roll, to having an offensive system that gets him on the move more so that he's not sagged off of a ton when he gets the ball in his hands, brilliant work. To see Jordan Hawkins go from being just a good three-point shooter and solid mid-range guy to the best three-point shooter in college basketball this year, with perhaps the exception of Grady Dick, Hawkins has been unbelievable for them and has transformed into almost a lottery pick. Adama Sanogo even starting to hit pick and pop threes. He had 5 assists in the first half when they were blitzing ball screens because he showed that he can make the right decision and be very simple with the ball in his hands. Yeah. They're really, really skilled. And while this UConn staff gets a ton of credit for the way that they've built this roster, for the way that they have envisioned this from top to bottom, offensive scheme, roster, whatever, they've made enough improvements internally to be able to put all of that to come to fruition.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the coaching staff. I think the scheme this year has been phenomenal with Connecticut. The way that they defend, they pressure at the point of attack, they use their length, they use their athleticism, they try and just push teams to be sped up the entire game, it feels like, with their length and athleticism. It's really, really sharp. And then offensively, they went through that lull in the middle of the season, in part because teams figured out, okay, we're going to put our worst defender on Andre Jackson. We're going to let him sag off and everything. And we're going to manage that, right? And then we're going to really try and force the ball out of Tristan Newton's hands, or in some cases, like force Tristan Newton to beat us is like the main point guard here. We don't know if he can do that. And while they were adjusting to the way teams were playing them, it felt like they went through that lull. The adjustment, I thought all of these adjustments were on display in this Gonzaga game, right? You saw this where, okay, we're going to let Drew Timme guard Andre Jackson. I think Gonzaga's game plan, like, I'll be honest, like, I talked to their staff after the game. I said, like, hey, I thought your game plan was great in this game. Like, I thought you guys had a great defensive game plan. Like, they had Drew Timme guard Andre Jackson, send some doubles to Sanogo, make Sanogo beat them as a passer. That's what you want to do. Sanogo just did it, right? The way UConn adjusted to Timme guarding Andre Jackson was super smart. They just had Andre Jackson go set on balls the whole time. In the first part of the second half until Timme got the fourth foul. Genius. Like, just super simple stuff. Not even like, it's not like rocket science necessarily, but it's super simple and super smart, right? Gonzaga blitz ball screens, super smart. Like, I think that's what you do. You try and force Connecticut's ball handlers to get uncomfortable, because sometimes they can. Andre Jackson is not the best ball handler in the world. Tristan Newton can get a little bit loose from time to time. Early on, they struggled. They settled in by telling Adama to short roll instead of roll all the way into a post up. That's why you saw the 5 assists happen, right? I thought Gonzaga's game plan was great. I just think this Connecticut team's an absolute buzzsaw, and it's terrific.
And the icing on the cake for them is that they're getting contributions from 2 freshmen, and Alex Caravan and Donovan Clingan, that are really able to be rotation mainstays. When they take Sanogo off the floor, they don't lose anything on their interior. They're really, really good. Really, really good.
Yep. Totally good. And by the way, you mentioned Jordan Hawkins might be a lottery pick. I have him there. Look, I had him in the top 15 before the tournament. So, like, not much of a jump for me, but, I have him right there. I think he's a terrific shooter and a terrific player.